You go to sleep every night, you don't think twice about it, but there is a version of unconsciousness that doctors induce on purpose, millions of times a year, and nobody can fully explain what happens to you inside it. It's called anesthesia, and when it hits, you don't just fall asleep, you disappear. Not your body stays right there on the table, your heart keeps beating, your lungs keep moving, but the part of you that experiences anything at all goes somewhere science still can't map. Where does it go, and does it come back the same? Start with what you think you know. You think anesthesia is just a deeper kind of sleep, a dial turned up, more of the same chemical drowsiness you feel at midnight. That assumption feels obvious, it is also wrong. Sleep and anesthesia look similar from the outside. Inside your brain, they are almost nothing alike. During normal sleep, your brain stays busy, it cycles through stages, it dreams, it consolidates memory. Different regions talk to each other in constantly shifting patterns, like a city that never fully goes dark, just quieter in some neighborhoods and louder in others. Under general anesthesia, that conversation stops. Researchers led by Emery Brown, a neuroscientist and anesthesiologist at MIT, have spent years studying exactly what anesthetic drugs do to the living brain. His work shows something strange. The drugs don't just slow your brain down, they synchronize it. Regions that once fired independently start pulsing together in slow, uniform waves, almost like a stadium crowd forced into the same chant. Individual thought requires variety, anesthesia erases the variety. That's the first clue. Consciousness isn't just about how active your brain is, it's about how differently its parts can behave from moment to moment. Take away that difference, and you take away the experience of being anyone at all. Here's where it gets stranger. If anesthesia isn't sleep, what is it? Some researchers argue it's closer to something rarer, a reversible coma. Your brain isn't resting, it's shut down in a very specific, engineered way. One drug company scientists spent decades calibrating so it could be switched back on again. Think about that for a second. You are voluntarily entering a state your own biology didn't design. Millions of years of evolution built sleep. Sleep helps you survive, it restores you. Anesthesia does none of that. It offers no biological benefit on its own. It exists purely because humans learned to chemically override consciousness itself, just long enough to cut someone open and sew them back up without them knowing. So where do you go? This is the question that has fascinated philosophers and neuroscientists alike, and one researcher tried to answer it with math instead of speculation. Giulio Tononi, a neuroscientist at the University of Wisconsin, developed something called integrated information theory. The idea is dense, but the core is simple enough to hold in your hand. Consciousness, in his framework, isn't a location in the brain, it's a byproduct of information moving in an integrated way, different parts feeding into a unified whole rather than operating in isolation. Under anesthesia, that integration collapses, not because the lights go off completely, but because the wiring that lets information combine into a single unified experience gets cut. Your neurons might still fire, your brain might still show electrical activity on a monitor, but the binding that turns scattered signals into you is gone. It's a bit like an orchestra. The musicians can still be sitting there, instruments in hand, capable of making sound, but if the conductor disappears and every musician plays alone, disconnected from the others, there's no symphony, there's just noise nobody hears, because there's no one there to hear it. Now here's the twist that keeps anesthesiologists up at night, quite literally, during every operation. Sometimes the conductor doesn't fully leave. Anesthesia awareness, where a patient regains some fragment of consciousness during surgery despite being unable to move or speak, has been documented in a small but real percentage of cases. Studies estimate it happens in roughly 1 to 2 out of every 1,000 surgeries involving paralytic drugs. Imagine that your body is stilled by design. You cannot signal distress, you cannot open your eyes, and yet, for a sliver of time, the lights inside might flicker back on. This isn't meant to frighten you, it's meant to show you how thin the line really is between being present and being gone. Anesthesiologists spend entire careers monitoring brain activity patterns specifically to keep that line from being crossed, adjusting drug levels in real time based on signals most patients never know are being watched. So if awareness can flicker back mid-surgery, does that mean you were there the whole time, just locked away? Or does it mean something even stranger, that the version of you which wakes up afterward isn't quite continuous with the version that went under? This is where the philosophy gets genuinely unsettling. Every time you go under general anesthesia, there is no experience of time passing. Patients regularly report going under and immediately, with zero perceived gap, waking up in recovery. Hours vanish. Not slowly, like a nap fading into wakefulness, instantly. Like a light switch. One moment you're counting backward from 10, the next, you're being asked your name in a different room, wondering if the surgery even started yet. That missing gap raises a question most people never sit with. You have no memory, no experience, and no perception of an interval. In what sense did you persist through it? The brain that wakes up is physically continuous with the one that went to sleep, but the felt experience, the actual subjective thread of being a self moving through time, was interrupted completely. Some philosophers argue this makes anesthesia the closest thing to genuine non-existence a living person can survive. That idea sounds bleak, until you flip it around, because the fact that you come back, coherent, intact, remembering your name and your life and the version of yourself you were before, that's not nothing, it's actually one of the most remarkable things a nervous system can do. Somehow, from a state that looks almost identical to death on a monitor, the specific configuration of memory, personality, and awareness reassembles itself, nearly perfectly, again and again. Nobody fully understands how. Stuart Hameroff, an anesthesiologist and consciousness researcher at the University of Arizona, has spent decades arguing that the answer might live at a scale most neuroscience doesn't even look at, inside microscopic structures within neurons called microtubules. His theories remain controversial, disputed by many in the field. The fact that a working anesthesiologist felt compelled to search that deep, past neurons, past synapses, down toward the edge of quantum physics, tells you something. The people who put you under for a living are some of the most uncertain about what they're actually turning off. Here's the modern mirror in all of this: you already live with a smaller version of this mystery every single day. Every time you fall asleep, a version of you disappears and a version of you returns, and you simply trust, without evidence, that they're the same person. You've never actually verified it, you just wake up, and the story continues, and that continuity feels like proof even though it isn't. Not really. Anesthesia just makes that leap of faith impossible to ignore. It strips away the dreams, the gradual fade, the comforting illusion that you were somewhere the whole time. It shows you the gap directly, and still, you wake up. So the next time you go to sleep tonight, notice something: you won't remember the moment you lost consciousness, you never do. Brain, your body, your entire sense of self, is going to vanish quietly, without ceremony, the same way it does every night, the same way it would on an operating table, and in the morning, without needing to prove anything to anyone, you'll simply be there again. That's not a small thing. The strangest, most reliable magic trick your biology performs, over and over, without you ever noticing the moment it happens.